I'm here today with John Reedy, my former student, just a great guy, and now a very, very successful entrepreneur. So thanks for taking a few minutes here, John, to share your success with all of us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming up to visit us in this cold state of Maine.
Well, the case is Catch a Piece of Maine, and the students have all read the case. I'd like to ask you first, when did you come up and how did you come up with a Catch a Piece of Maine concept? It's a very innovative business model. There's a whole new target user compared to your old business. What was sort of that aha moment for you?
Sure. I remember it was clear as a summer day here in Maine. I had some bankers up from New York, and like every year, I'd ask for more and more money from them. And they went through the books like normal. We're doing the tour, and all of a sudden, one of my lobster boats pulls in. And you'd swear these two guys were just kids in a candy store. They didn't care about anything else. All they cared about, is that a real lobsterman? Is that what's he doing? As the boat's unloading a lobster, and bringing the catch up to the dock. They were more concerned with that experience of seeing the lobsterman and seeing what goes on than looking at the numbers that I was presenting to them or whatever else. It was the experience. So what I tried to do is figure out if this is important to this group of Wall Street business people, would this apply to other people? And the answer is yes. What we sell is a product, Maine lobster. But what else is behind that? Is there any other value? And the answer is yes, there was. There was a tremendous amount of value. It was more the experience of them seeing that boat and understanding that they could smell the bait or feel that experience, and it added to their time there at my facility. And it got me the capital that I needed, but it launched Catch a Piece of Maine.
That's very, very cool. And that was about how long ago?
That was in the early part of 2006, and then a year later is actually when we launched the company. So once we came up with the idea, it took us another 12 to 15 months to actually make that happen.
Yes.
It's very important to us is you're not hasty with the idea, that you figure out is it a tangible option, what are the steps you go through, you build your team, and then at that point it was time to launch. And it was in the third quarter of 2007 when we launched, and we had a very successful fourth quarter of the year that really got us started with all the national publicity.
And when did you graduate from the university?
Graduated in 2004, spring of 2004. So we grew our wholesale business for the first 3 years and then launched this more innovative entrepreneurial venture that really had no proven business model. And that's how it all began.
And was there some inspiration for the Catch a Piece of Maine business from some of the cases or things that you had learned at the university?
Absolutely. I remember this clear as day too, is the M&M conversation, is how you take a very ordinary product and you print on the M&Ms, and you've just created an experience, you've just increased the value of that M&M, and you've increased the price point. Consumers see it as different, even though it's the same thing. It's identical to what we did. We took a very tangible product, live lobster, and we spun it and we sold the experience behind it. We increased revenues and we made more money.
And if we think about what goes into that experience, almost like, John, there's an architecture of a product. Well, what's the architecture of an experience for the user of Catch a Piece of Maine? Can you quickly go through the different elements of what that experience is for the consumer?
Sure. If you go to www.catchapieceofmaine.com, you'll have a really clear idea if you compare our site and our business model to others within our industry. When you enter our site, you'll learn a lot about what we do through different pictures and different videos and blogging and so on. You're really trying to make the customer feel like they're there on the dock with you. That does two things. It differentiates you from the other companies you're competing against, and also gains loyalty. It makes consumers feel comfortable. Our whole business model is about creating a customer base and regaining that customer base. You do not want to turn over their customers. The same thing we learned in I remember clear as day in one of your classes, is it's easier to retain a customer than to get another customer. So our business is built on repeat business. If our customer is happy, they share it with others. Others hear about it virally, and then you're budgeting for marketing and promotion is much lower than it would be in a traditional business model. Every evening when I have a package go out, when it's just about dinner time, I get on my BlackBerry, I'll get tinged, and it's time for me to make my phone calls for the night. I will call the consumer who ordered the package, and I'll say, "It's Captain John from CatchaPieceofMaine. Yes, I really am one of the lobstermen here, and I send lobsters at you, and I wanted to make sure they arrive safely. Do you know how to cook them? Is there anything else?" And a lot of times it turns into a half-hour conversation. I can promise you one thing, that's a customer for life. And all the other people around that dinner table during that dinner party, guess what? They're now customers too. It's a different way to gain loyalty and differentiate yourself from the traditional businesses who are competing on price.
And so in order to execute this whole approach, this whole business concept, coming from the wholesale business, where you have a set of logistics, infrastructure management, HR management, selling to other retailers in that type of business or to restaurants, going into the direct-to-consumer CatchaPieceofMaine business, there must have been a lot of things that you had to learn over the course of that year, up to launch and then after launch.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about some of the new things that you had to learn to be successful?
Sure. The number one thing, you got to know who is your customer, who are your competitors, and where do you fit in the mix. So from the get-go, we understood who were the three biggest companies that we were competing against. And by their price point alone, there was no way we were going to compete with them. They had us undercut. They had a better rate through FedEx or UPS because they sent a lot more packages and so on. So instead of going attacking them and saying, I'm going to take a piece of their business on price, no, you can't do that. You got to create more of a service. If someone calls us at CatchaPieceofMaine, it's Andrea or myself answering the phone. It's a live, real person who's sitting on the dock here and talking the talk of a lobsterman. It's not an automated system. It's not an answering machine. That's one way that we competed. It was a service business. Another really important was like I discussed before, was repeat business is key. If you're discussing and trying to figure out how much money am I going to sink into this company on promotions and marketing, you got to be realistic. And you got to understand that it's very expensive to compete online and try to take a big piece of the pie without spending $400,000 or $500,000. So the way we did it, again, is built on the service. We used social media, YouTube, we blog. Any way that you can gain loyalty from customers, prospective customers, is key.
And how did you handle the development of your website, the development of the self-service aspect of the investment bankers or lawyers putting in their preferred clientele? That's something very different or new for you coming from the wholesale distribution business.
Night and day. Cannot compare the two segments whatsoever. Wholesale is what's your cheapest price, I'll take it or leave it. Retail is the customer's always right. What can I do to gain your loyalty? What can I do for you to make sure that you feel comfortable here? So a lot of times, the amount of time that I invest in a customer through CatchaPieceofMaine is fivefold compared to a wholesale customer. The wholesale customer is simply interested in, are you going to get the product to me and what's your cheapest price? A CatchaPieceofMaine customer wants to make sure that their purchase is going to a good cause, their whatever they're buying is sustainable, that it's a feel-good purchase, and that it's a good value for what they're spending. They'll spend more if the value is there, but the value is built on customer service.
Can you give us an idea of the differences between the distribution business and the direct-to-consumer CatchaPieceofMaine business in terms of the types of volumes in each respective business, the profitability per pound of each type of business, and the growth trajectory also of each type of business
Sure.
moving forward?
Yep. Wholesale, you're dealing with very low margins, 5-8% if you're lucky. Retail, CatchaPieceofMaine, you're talking starting at 20-25%, much greater but much lower volume of packages or sales. $500,000 to $1 million in sales for an online company is pretty respectable. For a wholesale company like ours, our goal is to hit 50 million, and we are getting pretty close to that. A couple more years and we'll probably be there. So two completely different models. One, huge volume, low margin. The other one, much less volume, but very high margin.
Just like the M&Ms and the My M&Ms.
You got it. Diversified, right? That's how we look at our structure of our companies. It's a diversified portfolio where one company benefits the other. Our wholesale company, it pays most of the bills. The CatchaPieceofMaine has kind of that luxury higher end market that the wholesale company wouldn't touch because it doesn't have the ability to.
Right, and it would have been very difficult to get into the CatchaPieceofMaine business and to sustain it without the underlying fixed assets, the tanks, the holding tanks,
You got it.
and the supply from lobster men and women up and down the coast, supporting the new business.
There would be no way a company could do that without the structure that we had in place through Ready Seafood. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of improvements that would need to be done in for a relatively small Maine-based company. Risk-wise, I don't think anyone in their right mind would have done it, especially considering you're talking an unproven business model that's never really been done. So we look at Ready Seafood as our safety net. It's what pays the bills. It's what allowed us to be a little more adventurous and entrepreneurial. And then anything Catch produces it's bonus almost. It's if you think of Catch, it's almost like a marketing company. At the same time, it's assisting our wholesale company, Ready Seafood, sell more product through the idea of really illustrating where does that product come from. So in a lot of ways, each company uses the other one.
John, I've noticed that you've expanded your facilities here, your fixed assets, which serve both lines of business. Can you describe how you have expanded in terms of the building, the holding tanks? I also saw some pretty interesting looking shipping boxes downstairs, and you mentioned something about the TSA certification.
Sure.
Can you describe your investments in the underlying platforms for your company?
Yep. Where we're located now, which is different from our other business, we have about 25,000 square feet of space. We have one of the largest lobster holding facilities in the country. We can hold 125,000 pounds in our tank. And right now, being the slowest time of the year, we have 60,000 pounds in there. There's 25 full-time employees. We're looking to high-grade our sales force. Constantly we're trying to think of how can we be more efficient. Packaging product, right? You think of something you're spending $200,000-$300,000 on a year, and you think, how can I save money in this brown box that I buy so many of? We actually work with a distributor of these wax boxes, and we had one designed for us. Saved me $80,000 last year for having my own box design compared to the traditional. So you're looking with a fine-tooth comb of every aspect of your business, and you're trying to figure out how can I be more efficient? How can I create a better platform for my employees or team members? Where is there growth? And really the facility we're located now has allowed us to grow in every manner that we just discussed.
When I saw you several years ago, I think you had 3 employees and you showed me a funny little cot. And how many employees do you have now? And John, where are you sleeping these days?
3 employees and a cot that I slept on for a year and a half is the last time you saw me. That's what it takes when you're starting a business. For the past, couple of years, 3-4 years, yeah, I've slept at home. I've earned my way to my own house, but you make a valid point. When you start a business, you put the business first if you want it to succeed, and that's why I spent the first year and a half on a cot. I was available to the business at any point for any customer at any time because I was gaining respect from my industry and the customers I worked on. So it's a big step. 25 employees now, and we're growing.
Well, thank you, John. It's been a real pleasure, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good luck to all the students watching this.